You have never mattered. Not as a name, not as a face, not as the sum of your choices or the weight of your fears. You have mattered only as a number in a ledger that stretches across 10,000 years and a million worlds, compiled by hands that have never seen you and never will. The Imperial Guard does not exist to remember you, it exists to spend you. This is not a tragedy, this is a function. Begin with the tithe. Every world that kneels beneath the Aquila owes the Imperium a portion of itself. The nature of this debt varies. Forge worlds offer munitions, agri-worlds offer grain, hive worlds where billions press against billions in towers that scrape the sky and roots that drink the dark offer the only resource they possess in abundance, bodies. The tithe is calculated by the administratum. Scribes in climate-controlled offices on distant worlds receive data packets transmitted across the void, each one containing census figures, industrial output projections, garrison strength assessments, and mortality estimates. These figures are cross-referenced against templates older than living memory. The templates do not account for famine, they do not account for plague, they account only for what is owed. A world is assessed, a percentage is determined. The percentage is not negotiable. The assessment is performed by functionaries who have never breathed the air of the world they are judging. They review population density maps rendered in green and amber. They examine productivity graphs that chart output over decades. They consult mortality tables that predict how many will die of natural causes, industrial accidents, and civil unrest. They subtract the dead from the living and calculate what remains. What remains is the tithe. The calculation is complex. It involves variables for age distribution, gender ratios, genetic fitness, prior service records, and projected growth rates. It involves formulas preserved in leather-bound tomes kept in vaults beneath mountains, formulas written in a mathematical language that has not been taught in 3,000 years. The scribes do not understand the formulas. They simply apply them. The tithe fleet arrives on schedule. It does not wait. It does not ask. Tithe officers descend to the surface with requisition orders sealed in wax and witnessed by null servitors whose brains have been scooped clean of bias or mercy. The orders are presented to the planetary governor. The governor signs. If the governor does not sign, the orders are presented to whoever replaces the governor. The replacement happens quickly. The Imperium does not tolerate delay. The Guard does not recruit. It harvests. In the underhives, press gangs move through hab blocks with stun mauls and cargo netting. They take the young and the strong, the healthy and the whole. They leave the old, the sick, the crippled, and the very young. They do not make exceptions. A mother who hides her son beneath the floor will find him gone when the scanners sweep the district. The scanners do not miss. They were built on Mars, where forgetting is heresy. The press gangs work in shifts. They move through districts in patterns calculated for maximum efficiency. They are accompanied by enforcers in carapace armor, and by Medicae servitors that perform immediate genetic screening, and by scribe servitors that log each acquisition in real time. The data flows upward through layers of bureaucracy, accumulating in archives that will never be fully read but must be maintained because the alternative is chaos. Chaos is the only true enemy. In the mid-hive, conscription comes with pageantry. Banners hang from gantries. Preachers shout the litany of sacrifice from balconies draped in red velvet. The young men who report to the induction centers have been told they are heroes. Some believe this, some do not. It does not matter. They are counted, cataloged, and loaded into cargo haulers regardless. The pageantry serves a purpose. It maintains the illusion that service is voluntary, that the tithe is a gift rather than a tax. The illusion is important. It reduces resistance. Resistance requires pacification, and pacification consumes resources that could be spent elsewhere. The haulers rise through the atmosphere in convoys of 1,000 ships. They do not carry names. They carry designation codes, bulk transport, infantry grade, non-perishable. The men and women inside are seated in rows, 500 to a hold, strapped into harnesses that leave welts across the chest and thighs. There are no windows. The air smells like sweat and recycled oil and the sharp chemical tang of disinfectant mist. The journey to the tithe station takes 6 hours. No one speaks. There is nothing to say. At the tithe station, they are unloaded. Ramps descend. Overseers in long coats bark directions through voxcasters. The conscripts shuffle forward in lines that stretch for kilometers, winding through hangar bays the size of cathedrals. The bays are filled with the sound of boots on metal and the low, grinding hum of ventilation systems that never stop. They are sorted. Medical servitors scan for genetic defects, latent mutation, and diseases that have not yet manifested symptoms. The servitors are thorough. They peer into eye sockets with instruments that click and whir. They draw blood with needles the diameter of a finger. They take tissue samples from the inside of the cheek and the roof of the mouth. They examine bone density, muscle mass, neurological response times, and psychological stability. Those who fail are culled. The culled are not executed. They are repurposed. A failed conscript becomes a servitor or a test subject, or a protein paste mixed into the rations of those who passed. The Imperium does not waste. The repurposing facilities are located in sublevels beneath the tithe station. They are staffed by Mechanicus adepts who wear red robes stained with fluids that were once human. The adepts do not speak to the culled, they simply process them. A human body contains useful components, organs for transplantation, bones for chemical extraction, nervous tissue for wetware integration, skin for leather production. Nothing is discarded. The Imperium is 10,000 years old because it has learned to use everything. Those who remain are divided by capability. The strong are marked for line infantry. The literate are marked for logistics or communication corps. Those with technical aptitude are flagged for engineering divisions. Those with none of these things and no obvious defects are marked for penal legions. They are not asked their preferences. Across 10,000 worlds, this process repeats. Across 10,000 worlds, the numbers rise. The administratum receives the tallies. The tallies are entered into archives buried beneath mountains, where servitors with human spines fused to data cogitators process the flow of information in shifts that last decades. The servitors do not sleep. They cannot. Sleep has been removed. The archives contain the entire history of the Imperial Guard. Every regiment raised, every battle fought, every casualty suffered. The archives do not distinguish between victory and defeat. Both are filed under the same heading, expenditure. The Guard is not an army. It is a resource allocation system. A regiment is born when the administratum decrees it. The decree comes in the form of a writ, signed by a Departamento Munitorum officiant whose name will never be remembered. The writ specifies planet of origin, regimental designation, estimated strength, and equipment grade. The writ does not specify mission. That will come later, if it comes at all. On the tithe world, the conscripts are gathered in staging grounds that sprawl across continents. They are issued uniforms. The uniforms are dyed in colors determined by the Tactica Imperialis: gray-green for forest regiments, sand-tan for desert regiments, void-black for shipborne infantry. The dye does not always match the environment where they will fight. This is acceptable. The dye is standardized. Standardization is sacred. It allows any regiment to be replaced by any other regiment. It allows equipment to be interchangeable. It allows the Imperium to treat regiments not as collections of individuals, but as modular units that can be inserted into gaps in the battle line without adjustment or delay. They are issued weapons. The Lasriefel is a miracle of simplicity. It is built on a template that has not changed in 8,000 years. It can be assembled by servitors with no arms, only mag clamps. It can be repaired with a screwdriver and faith. It will fire in vacuum, in acid rain, in the ash-choked air of a dying world. It will not jam. It will not misfire. It will kill whatever it is pointed at, provided the wielder pulls the trigger and the target is made of flesh. The las rifle is recharged by sunlight, or by fire, or by slotting the power pack into a wall socket. A single power pack holds 60 shots. A guardsman is issued 4. He is told these will last him as long as he needs them to. This is a lie. They are issued flak armor. The armor is pressed ceramite layered over rubberized mesh. It will stop shrapnel. It will stop stubber rounds at range. It will not stop a bolt gun or a plasma burst or the claw of a gene-engineered predator bred in the dark between stars. The armor is not meant to keep them alive. It is meant to keep them functional long enough to fulfill their purpose. The armor is produced on forge worlds where entire continents have been given over to manufactory complexes. The manufactorums run without pause. Servitors labor in assembly lines that stretch for hundreds of kilometers, each servitor performing a single task: welding a seam, attaching a strap, inspecting for defects. The servitors are themselves products of the system. They were once criminals, or heretics, or simply individuals deemed inefficient. Their minds have been wiped. Their bodies have been augmented. They will work until their organic components fail, and then they will be replaced. The flak armor they produce is stamped with a manufacturing code, a date, and a quality seal. The seal is applied by an overseer servitor that has been programmed to recognize 47 categories of defect. If a defect is detected, the piece is discarded. If no defect is detected, the piece is packed into crates and shipped to tithe stations across the sector. The crates are loaded onto cargo vessels. The vessels travel through the warp. Some vessels are lost. This is factored into production quotas. The Forge Worlds simply manufacture more. They are issued helmets, canteens, ration tins, entrenching tools, identification tags, and a copy of the Imperial Infantryman's uplifting primer. The primer is 200 pages of doctrine, prayer, and morale-sustaining propaganda printed on paper thin enough to read the page beneath. It contains illustrations of enemy species with anatomy labeled for maximum lethality. It contains instructions for fieldcraft, marksmanship, and ritual purity. It contains a section titled "What to Do If You Are the Last Man Alive," which is 3 pages long and consists entirely of variations on the phrase "continue fighting." The primer does not contain a section on surrender. Surrender is not doctrine. Surrender is worse than death. A man who dies fighting is logged as a casualty. A man who surrenders is logged as a traitor. His equipment is not salvaged. His body is not processed. His name is erased. His family, if they can be located, are marked with suspicion. They will find doors closed to them. They will find opportunities denied. The stain spreads. Better to die. They are trained for 12 weeks. This is longer than some regiments receive. This is shorter than most will need. The training is overseen by drill abbots drawn from the Schola Progenium, or by veterans reassigned from active duty, or by commissars who have been judged too old for frontline enforcement but not yet ready for retirement. The trainers do not learn the names of the conscripts. There are too many names. Instead, they learn faces and assign probabilities. That one will break under fire. That one will hesitate. That one will run. The probabilities are not recorded. They are simply known. A good trainer can look at a conscript and predict, with reasonable accuracy, how long he will survive. This knowledge is not shared with the conscripts. Hope, even false hope, has tactical value. The training is simple. They learn to march in formation. They learn to dig trenches and fill sandbags and string razor wire across open ground. They learn to disassemble their lasrifles in the dark and reassemble them by touch. They learn to advance under fire, to hold ground under bombardment, to obey orders without question or delay. They learn the prayers. Every morning begins with the litany of duty. Every evening ends with the prayer of protection. Before they eat, they recite thanks to the God Emperor for the bounty they are about to consume, even though the bounty is a compressed ration bar that tastes like salted clay. The prayers are not optional. A man who does not pray is reported. A man who is reported twice is executed as an example. Faith is cheaper than morale. The prayers serve multiple functions. They establish routine. They reinforce hierarchy. They create a shared language that transcends planetary origin and cultural difference. A man from a feudal world and a man from a hive world may have nothing in common, but they both know the litany of duty. They both know the prayer of protection. In the chaos of battle, when Vox communication is lost and visibility is reduced to meters, the prayers become a rallying point. They also dull the mind. The repetition, the rhythm, the constant invocation of the Emperor's name, all of this creates a state of mental compliance. A man who has recited the litany of duty 10,000 times does not question when he is ordered to advance into fire. The order becomes an extension of the prayer. Both are doctrine. Both must be obeyed. On the final day of training, they are assembled in a parade ground large enough to hold 50,000 men. They stand in ranks that stretch beyond the limits of vision. The air smells like boot polish and nervous sweat. At the front of the formation, on a raised platform draped in crimson banners, a commissar delivers the oath of service. The oath is older than the Imperium. It has been spoken by trillions. It will be spoken by trillions more. The conscripts repeat the words in unison, their voices blending into a sound like distant thunder. I am the shield that guards mankind. I am the blade that strikes the Emperor's foes. I am the wall that holds the darkness at bay. My life is not my own. My death is not my choice. I serve until I fall, and when I fall forward. The words echo across the parade ground. They are transmitted via voxcasters to those too distant to hear. The commissar does not smile. The conscripts do not cheer. This is not a moment of triumph. This is a contract. They are no longer conscripts. They are guardsmen. The regiment is loaded onto void ships and sent into the warp. The journey takes days, or months, or years. Time does not flow consistently in the Immaterium. A guardsman who enters the warp as a boy may emerge as a man with gray in his beard, or may emerge a boy still, untouched by the passage of time that has killed everyone he ever knew. The warp does not care. During transit, they are kept in hibernation pods, or they are kept awake in the holds, depending on the ship's capacity and the navigator's preferences. If they are awake, they are given tasks. They scrub decks, they load munitions, they recite prayers in shifts, maintaining an unbroken chain of devotion meant to ward the ship against corruption. The prayers do not always work. Sometimes the ship is lost. Sometimes the ship arrives at its destination with its crew transformed into things that must be burned. The ships that carry the guard are ancient. Some were built during the Great Crusade 10,000 years ago. They have been repaired and refitted so many times that almost nothing of the original structure remains, but the hull designation is preserved. The ship remembers what it was, even if every rivet and bulkhead has been replaced. The ships are vast. A single troop transport can carry 100,000 guardsmen, along with their map, equipment, their supplies, and their support staff. The guardsmen are housed in holds stacked 30 levels deep. Each level is a labyrinth of corridors and chambers lit by flickering lumens. The air is recycled endlessly, filtered through systems that remove carbon dioxide and moisture, but cannot remove the smell of too many bodies in too small a space. The guardsmen sleep in tiers, bunks welded to the walls in rows of 4. Each bunk is 2 meters long and half a meter wide. There is no privacy. There is no quiet. Men snore, weep, pray, argue, some go mad. The mad ones are sedated and restrained. If sedation fails, they are culled. Madness is contagious in the warp. When the ship emerges from the warp, the regiment is deployed. Deployment is rarely clean. Shuttles descend through hostile fire, through electrical storms, through clouds of spores released by alien flora. Guardsmen are packed into drop pods or bulk landers or repurposed cargo haulers with no seats and no restraints. They stand crushed against one another, breathing recycled air, thick with incense and fear, and they wait for the sound of the engines to change pitch. The descent is violent, the landers shake, metal groans, rivets pop, men vomit. The vomit floats in zero gravity until the lander enters atmosphere and gravity reasserts itself, slamming everything downward. Men are thrown against bulkheads, bones break, no one can move to help. They are packed too tightly. When the landing ramp drops, some of them will die before they take their first step onto solid ground. This is acceptable. The Departamento Munitorum accounts for 30% attrition during initial deployment. If attrition exceeds projections, the shortfall is noted. If it does not, the surplus is noted. Both figures are filed. His name was Cathan Vro. It is not important that you remember it. He was born in Hive Voltaris on the world of Cedric IV, 17 years before the Tithe fleet arrived. His mother worked in a textile reclamation plant, stripping fibers from discarded clothing and feeding them into machines that wove new fabric for the mid-hive merchants. His father had worked in the same plant until a loom malfunction crushed his left hand into paste. After the accident, his father was reassigned to sanitation detail. He died of lung rot when Cathan was 9. Cathan inherited his father's work shift. He spent 8 years hauling refuse through the undertunnels, emptying waste hoppers into sluice gates that fed the recycle pools 6 kilometers below. The work was hot and dark, and the air tasted like copper and rot. He did not complain. Complaint was inefficiency. Inefficiency was grounds for termination. Termination meant reassignment to the recycle pools. No one came back from the recyc pools. Cathan's shift lasted 16 hours. He woke in the dark, dressed in the dark, and walked 3 kilometers through tunnels lit by bioluminescent fungi cultivated in cracks in the walls. The fungi glowed pale green and smelled like vinegar. They were the only light in the undertunnels. The Administratum did not waste power on illumination for sanitation workers. He worked alongside 40 others. None of them spoke. Speech required breath, and breath was a luxury when the air was thick with particulate waste and chemical fumes. They wore rebreathers issued by the plant overseer, but the filters were old and the seals were cracked. Cathan learned to breathe shallowly, to ration air, to move slowly to conserve energy. He did this for 8 years. He saved nothing. His wages were automatically deducted for hab block rent, water ration fees, air quality taxes, and a tithe to the local chapel. What remained was barely enough to purchase food. He ate 1 meal a day, a protein bar and a cup of recaf. The protein bar was gray and tasted like dust. The recaf was black and tasted like oil. He did not question this. This was life in the underhive. When the conscription order came, Cathan did not resist. He reported to the induction center with 40,000 others. He stood in line for 11 hours. He was scanned, cataloged, and passed. He was issued a number 77340KV. He was issued a uniform, a las rifle, and a copy of the primer. He was assigned to the 881st Cedric Infantry. During training, Cathan did not excel. He was not the fastest runner or the best shot or the most devout. He was average. Average was sufficient. Average kept him alive when the instructors culled the weakest and promoted the strongest to grenadier squads or special weapons teams. Cathan remained in the line. The line was where most men belonged. He made no friends. Friendship implied attachment. Attachment implied grief. Grief was inefficiency. There were others like him in the regiment, men who had come from the underhive, who had spent their lives in darkness and heat and silence. They recognized one another without speaking. They moved in the same way, economically, without wasted motion. They did not smile, they did not joke, they simply endured. The drill abbots noticed this. They marked these men as reliable. Reliable men were placed in positions where reliability mattered: rearguard actions, holding positions, suicide assaults. Reliable men did not break, they did not run, they simply died. When the regiment boarded the void ship Enduring Servitude, Cathan was assigned to Pod 7, Hold 3, Subdeck 14. He spent the journey in a hibernation pod the size of a coffin, his body locked in chemically induced stasis while the ship clawed its way through the warp. He did not dream. The chemicals prevented dreaming. Dreams were unnecessary. The ship arrived at the war. Cathan did not know what war. The briefing officer who addressed the regiment before deployment spoke for 40 minutes and conveyed no useful information. The enemy was described as hostile elements requiring pacification. The theater of operations was described as contested territory of strategic importance. The mission was described as protracted engagement with acceptable casualty margins. Cathan did not ask questions. Questions were inefficiency. He descended to the surface in a bulk lander that shook so violently during re-entry that 3 men vomited into their helmets and choked to death on the way down. Their bodies were left in the lander when the ramp dropped. There was no time to remove them. The bodies would be collected later, processed, and converted into something useful. The planet was called Gaia's Reach. It was cold. The sky was the color of old bone, choked with ash from continent-spanning fires that had been burning for 6 years. The ground was mud mixed with chemical runoff from shattered manufactorums. The mud was black, and it stuck to boots, and it smelled like burning hair. The regiment was deployed to the northern continent, assigned to reinforce a trench network that stretched 300 kilometers from end to end. The trenches were 8 meters deep and lined with sheet metal salvaged from wrecked vehicles. Duckboards had been laid across the floor to keep the mud from swallowing men whole. The duckboards were slick with algae and blood. Cathan was assigned to 3rd Platoon, 7th Company, 2nd Squad. His squad leader was a man named Harrow, who had survived 11 months on Gaia's Reach and spoke in a monotone that never changed pitch. Harrow explained the routine. They would hold the trench. They would repel enemy advances. They would maintain equipment and perform sentry rotations and dig new positions when the old ones collapsed. They would do this until they were relieved, or until they died. "Relieved when?" Cathan asked. Harrow looked at him for a long time. The look was not unkind. It was simply empty. "Never," Harrow said. "The error occurred in the Departamento Munitorum processing facility on Hydrafer 3 years before Cathan Vro was born." A data clerk named Ossian Trell was tasked with updating supply manifests for the Gaia's Reach theater of operations. The manifests were dense, 400 pages of munitions allocations, equipment requisitions, and logistical timelines. Ossian had been performing this task for 16 years. He was good at it. He was efficient. Efficiency was virtue. On the 73rd day of a 90-day assignment cycle, Ossian misread a requisition code. The code in question was Ammo Slep A744C. It should have been filed under standard issue resupply for garrison forces. Ossian, whose eyes burned from staring at columns of text and flickering light, read it as Ammo Las G44D. He entered the incorrect code into the manifest template. He flagged the entry as processed. He moved on to the next line. The error propagated. Ossian did not notice. He could not have noticed. The codes were nearly identical. The difference was a single character. In a manifest containing 40,000 line items, a single character was invisible. The manifest was 400 pages of dense text printed in a font so small that Ossian required magnification lenses to read it. He had been staring at these manifests for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 16 years. His eyes were failing. He had requested replacement lenses. The request had been denied. Replacement lenses were allocated based on priority. Data clerks were low priority. Ossian completed the manifest. He transmitted it to the logistics hub on Gaia's Reach. He flagged the file as complete and moved on to the next assignment. He did not think about the manifest again. The manifest was transmitted to the logistics hub on Gaia's Reach. The hub was a fortress the size of a city, buried beneath 30 meters of reinforced rockcrete. Inside, servitors processed data in shifts that never ended. The servitors were once human. They had been criminals or incompetents or simply unlucky. Their brains had been removed, modified, and reinstalled in mechanical chassis. They did not sleep. They did not eat. They simply processed. The manifest arrived. A servitor scanned it. The servitor cross-referenced the manifest against available stock in the sector depots. The code G744D did not match any allocation in the depot's inventory. The discrepancy was noted. A query was filed. The query was transmitted back to Hydrafer. It arrived in the office of a different data clerk, a woman named Eris Khan. Eris reviewed the original manifest, saw the code G744D, and assumed the sector depot was operating from an outdated template. Templates were frequently outdated. The Administratum updated templates on a schedule determined by bureaucratic processes that moved with glacial slowness. Eris updated the depot's template to include code G7-44D. She flagged the query as resolved. She transmitted the updated template to Gaia's Reach. She moved on to the next query. No lasgun ammunition was shipped to Sector 7 North. This was not noticed for 8 months. Sector 7 North was not in active combat. The garrison forces stationed there were performing routine patrols and perimeter security. Their ammunition reserves were sufficient for these tasks. They did not request resupply because resupply was scheduled, and schedules were doctrine. Schedules were sacred. A scheduled resupply was a certainty. It would arrive when the manifest said it would arrive. To request early resupply was to imply that the schedule was wrong. To imply that the schedule was wrong was to imply that the Administratum had failed. The Administratum did not fail. Better to wait. When the 8th 81st Cedric Infantry arrived and was deployed to Sector 7 North, they were issued ammunition from the depot's existing stock. The stock was adequate for initial deployment. The regiment began combat operations. Ammunition was expended. Resupply requests were filed. The requests were routed through the same logistics chain. The manifest still contained the code G744D. The depot still did not have inventory tagged with that code. The requests were flagged as pending verification. Verification took 6 weeks. The verification process was complex. It involved cross-referencing requisition codes against supply logs, comparing inventory levels against usage projections, and submitting queries to multiple tiers of administrative oversight. Each tier operated independently. Each tier had its own backlog. Each tier processed requests in the order they were received. The 881st Cedric Infantry was not a priority. They were a standard line infantry regiment engaged in a standard holding action on a planet that had been at war for 6 years. There were 1,000 other regiments on Gaia's Reach. There were 10,000 other wars. By the time a supply audit was authorized and a logistics overseer physically inspected the depot's inventory against the manifest, the 881st Cedric Infantry had been engaged in continuous combat for 4 months. Their ammunition reserves were at 19% of operational capacity. They were rationing power packs. Guardsmen were issued 2 packs per engagement instead of 4. They were ordered to fire only when enemy contact was confirmed at close range. The audit identified the discrepancy. The logistics overseer filed a priority correction request. The request was approved. Shipments were scheduled. The shipments would arrive in 3 months. 3 months was acceptable. 3 months was within tolerance. The regiment would endure. Regiments always endured. Cathan Vro learned to count his shots. 3rd Platoon held a section of trench designated as Firing Position 19 Tertius. The trench faced a stretch of no man's land 2 kilometers wide, cratered by artillery and strewn with the debris of previous assaults. On the far side of no man's land was the enemy. The enemy wore armor the color of rust and copper. They moved in coordinated phalanxes, advancing behind mobile barricades made from scrap metal welded into towering shields. They carried weapons that fired hard rounds, slugs of alloy that punched through flak armor like wet paper. They did not shout, they did not chant, they advanced in silence, and they did not stop. Cathan did not know who they were, he did not know what they wanted. He knew only that they came every day, and every day 3rd Platoon had to kill them. 3rd Platoon had 83 men. They had 19 las guns, 14 autoguns, 2 plasma rifles, and 1 heavy stubber. They had 4 power packs per man for the las guns, 3 magazines per man for the autoguns, 6 cells for the plasma rifles, and 2 ammo belts for the stubber. They were told to hold for 72 hours. The first assault came at dawn. The enemy emerged from the ash haze in ranks of 200, their barricades rolling forward on treads salvaged from mining equipment. The guardsmen opened fire at 400 meters. Las bolts lanced across the mud and struck the barricades, scorching the metal but failing to penetrate. The enemy did not slow. At 200 meters, Harrow gave the order to target the gaps between barricades. The guardsmen adjusted their aim. Shots found flesh, bodies fell. The advance did not falter. For every enemy that dropped, another stepped into the gap. Cathan fired in controlled bursts. 3 shots, pause, 3 shots. He aimed for center mass. He did not aim for headshots. Headshots were difficult. Center mass was reliable. A las bolt to the chest would kill a man, or wound him badly enough that he stopped advancing. Either was acceptable. At 100 meters, the heavy stubber opened up. The weapon roared, spitting fat rounds that tore through armor and bone. The enemy line buckled. Men fell in heaps. The barricades ground to a halt. The remaining attackers broke and retreated, dragging their wounded. 3rd Platoon had repelled the assault. They had expended 40% of their ammunition. Harrow ordered the men to police the trench. They collected spent casings, salvaged power packs from damaged las guns, and cleared firing positions of debris. They did not celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. The enemy would return. The second assault came 6 hours later. This time the enemy advanced in 3 waves, staggered to prevent concentrated fire. The guardsmen were forced to choose targets. They focused on the lead wave. The lead wave broke. The second wave reached the trench. Close quarters fighting erupted, bayonets and entrenching tools and fists. Cathan killed a man by driving his bayonet through the gap beneath the man's helmet. The blade stuck in the vertebrae. Cathan had to plant his boot on the corpse's shoulder to wrench it free. The fighting lasted 11 minutes. It felt like hours. When it ended, the trench floor was slick with blood. Bodies lay in heaps, enemy and guardsmen alike. Cathan helped drag the Imperial dead to a collection point at the rear of the trench. The bodies would be processed later. Their equipment would be salvaged. Their tags would be logged. The enemy retreated. 3rd Platoon had lost 11 men. They had expended 60% of their remaining ammunition. Harrow sent a priority request for resupply. The request was acknowledged. No delivery estimate was provided. The third assault came at nightfall. The guardsmen fired into the darkness, aiming at muzzle flashes and the sound of treads. They could not see what they were shooting at. They could only shoot and hope. The enemy reached the trench. The fighting was chaotic, lit by last fire and the stuttering glow of burning promethium. Cathan's lasgun ran dry. He switched to his sidearm, a stub revolver with 6 rounds. He fired all 6. He did not know if any of them hit. He fought with his bayonet. He fought with his entrenching tool. He fought with his hands. A man tackled him into the mud. They struggled. The man's hands closed around Cathan's throat. Cathan drove his thumbs into the man's eyes. The man screamed and released him. Cathan grabbed a fallen lasgun and smashed the stock into the man's face until the face stopped being a face. When the enemy withdrew, 3rd Platoon had 31 men left. They had no ammunition for the lasguns. They had 8 rounds left for the autoguns. The plasma rifles had overheated and cracked their casings. The heavy stubber had jammed. Harrow sent another priority request for resupply. The request was acknowledged. No delivery estimate was provided. The 4th assault came at dawn. 3rd Platoon did not have the ammunition to repel it. Harrow ordered the men to fix bayonets. They did. The enemy came. The guardsmen met them at the trench line with blades in desperation. Cathan Vro killed 3 men with his bayonet before a slug punched through his chest and exited beneath his shoulder blade. The impact threw him backward. He fell into the mud. He lay there, staring at the ash-gray sky, and he listened to the sound of his squad dying around him. He could not feel his legs. He could feel the blood leaving his body, hot and fast, soaking into the mud beneath him. He could feel his heartbeat slowing. Each beat took longer than the last. He did not feel pain. Shock was a mercy. He thought about the textile reclamation plant. He thought about his mother, bending over the looms, her fingers moving with mechanical precision. He thought about the sanitation tunnels and the taste of copper in the air. He thought about the number they had given him, 773, 40 kV. He wondered if anyone would remember it. He did not live long enough to learn the answer. His body was collected 6 hours later, after the trench was retaken by reinforcements from another regiment. His identification tag was logged. His equipment was salvaged. His body was loaded onto a cargo hauler and transported to a processing facility 30 kilometers to the south. At the processing facility, his body was rendered. Useful biological material was extracted. Organs for transplant candidates, bone matter for chemical conversion, tissue for protein synthesis. What remained was incinerated. The ash was mixed with the ash of 1,000 others and used as fertilizer in the agricultural zones. Nothing was wasted. Harrow survived the 4th assault. He was one of 7 men from 3rd Platoon who did. They were pulled back from the line and folded into a composite unit formed from the remnants of 4 other platoons. The composite unit was assigned to a different section of trench. The fighting continued. Ammunition trickled in, never enough, always late. Men died. New men arrived to replace them. The new men died. Harrow stopped learning their names. He stopped sleeping. Sleep brought dreams, and dreams brought faces. The faces of men he had failed to save. The faces of men he had ordered to die. The faces were always the same, blank, accepting, already gone. He learned to function on 4 hours of sleep per week. He learned to ignore the tremor in his hands, the weight in his chest, the sound of his own voice cracking when he gave orders. He learned that the human body could endure beyond what should be possible, provided the mind was given no alternative. 3 months after the 4th assault, a supply convoy arrived at Sector 7 North. The convoy contained 600 crates of lasgun power packs, flagged with the correct requisition code. The crates were distributed to the regiment. The ammunition situation stabilized. Harrow received 4 power packs. He loaded one into his lasgun and stowed the others in his pack. He sat in the trench and stared at the packs for a long time. He thought about Cathan Vro. He thought about the 11 men who had died in the 2nd assault and the 19 who had died in the 3rd. He thought about the data clerk on Hydrofer, whose name he would never know, who had misread a single line of text. He thought about the system. The system did not make mistakes. Mistakes implied failure. The system did not fail. It compensated. It adjusted. It continued. Men died because the system required them to die at a certain rate, in a certain manner, to maintain operational parameters that had been calculated by minds so vast and so distant that their reasoning could not be questioned. The system had not failed to deliver ammunition. The system had delivered ammunition on the schedule it deemed acceptable. The fact that men had died in the interim was not a flaw. It was a variable. Harrow understood this with a clarity that felt like drowning. He had believed once that the Guard existed to protect humanity. He had believed that every death served a purpose, that every sacrifice brought victory closer, that the Emperor watched and knew and cared. He no longer believed this. The Emperor, if he existed at all, was as distant and indifferent as the stars. The Guard did not exist to protect. It existed to consume. It consumed men and munitions and material, and it converted them into territory held and enemies killed and objectives secured. The equation was simple. The equation was always the same. Harrow did not rage. He did not weep. He loaded his lasgun and returned to the line. He would serve until he fell. The oath demanded it. And when he fell, he would fall forward, because that was doctrine. The war on Gyre's Reach lasted 14 years. The 881st Cedric Infantry ceased to exist as a distinct unit after the first year. Casualties reduced the regiment to sub-operational strength. The survivors were absorbed into other regiments, their designation erased from the order of battle. New regiments arrived. They died. More arrived. The pattern repeated across the continent. Regiments were fed into the war like fuel into a furnace. They burned. The war continued. The enemy was eventually pushed back. The northern continent was declared pacified. Imperial forces consolidated control and began reconstruction operations. Factories were rebuilt. Populations were resettled. The tithe resumed. Gyre's Reach was logged as a victory. The cost was recorded in a data vault on Hydrofer. The vault contained casualty figures for the campaign: 4.7 million guardsmen dead, 1.2 million missing, 800,000 wounded and discharged, 200,000 executed for cowardice or dereliction. The figures were cross-referenced against strategic objectives achieved and resources secured. The ratio was deemed acceptable. Acceptable was the highest designation the Administratum awarded. Acceptable meant the campaign had met projections. The losses had been anticipated. The gains had been achieved. The math worked. Ossian Trell, the data clerk whose error had initiated the ammunition shortage, never learned what his mistake had caused. He retired after 30 years of service and received a small pension and a commendation for meticulous record-keeping. He died in his sleep at the age of 63. His body was cremated and his ashes were scattered in accordance with planetary custom. He was never told that his error had contributed to the deaths of thousands of guardsmen. He was never told because the Administratum did not track causality at that level of granularity. The error had been corrected. The system had adapted. The outcome was acceptable. Harrow survived the war. He was reassigned to a garrison post on a peaceful world and spent his remaining years training conscripts. He did not speak about Gyre's Reach. When asked, he said only that he had done his duty. He died of liver failure at 41. His body was cremated and his ashes were scattered in accordance with regimental tradition. No monument was raised. Cathan Vro's name appears in the rolls of the honored dead, a ledger maintained by the Departamento Munitorum for administrative purposes. His entry is identical to 11 million others. Designation number, date of death, cause of death, planet of demise. His mother never learned what happened to him. She worked in the textile reclamation plant until her hands gave out, and then she was reassigned to a nutrient reclamation facility, and then she died. The system continued. Understand the numbers. The Imperial Guard maintains approximately 500 trillion active soldiers at any given time. This is not an estimate. This is a census figure, updated quarterly, transmitted via astropathic relay to the central archives on Terra. 500 trillion. The number is difficult to comprehend. If every guardsman stood shoulder to shoulder, they would form a line that wrapped around Terra's equator 14,000 times. If every guardsman fired his lasgun once, the combined energy discharge would be visible from orbit as a second sun. These soldiers are distributed across 1 million worlds. Some worlds host entire armies, billions of guardsmen garrisoned in fortress cities, waiting for wars that may never come. Other worlds host a single squad, 10 men standing watch over a Prometheum refinery on a moon that has no name. The distribution is not random, it is calculated. The Departamento Munitorum maintains predictive models that estimate threat probability for every world in the Imperium. The models factor in proximity to known xenos territories, history of rebellion, strategic value of local resources, and 1,000 other variables. The models are never wrong. When they are wrong, the error is filed as a data anomaly and the model is recalibrated. Every day, the Guard fights approximately 40,000 separate engagements. These range from skirmishes involving a single platoon to planetary sieges involving billions of soldiers. Every day, approximately 3 million Guardsmen die. 3 million. Every day. This is sustainable. The tithe replenishes losses at a rate of 3.2 million recruits per day. The surplus of 200,000 is allocated to expansion operations, new regiments raised for new wars, or old regiments reinforced after catastrophic losses. The system balances itself. It always has. It always will. The Imperial Guard does not end. It does not rest. It does not mourn. Across 1 million worlds, the tithe is levied. Across 1 million worlds, men and women are counted and loaded and sent into the void. They are given guns and armor and prayers. They are told they are heroes. Some believe this, some do not. It does not matter. They are sent to wars that began before they were born and will continue after they are dead. They are sent to hold ground that has no name, against enemies they do not understand, for objectives they are not told. They are sent in numbers so vast that their individual lives blur into statistical abstraction. A guardsman is not a person. A guardsman is a unit of resource. He is measured in the same terms as ammunition, fuel, and rations. He is expended at a rate calculated to maximize return on investment. When he dies, his equipment is salvaged and reissued. His body is processed into something useful. His name is logged and forgotten. This is not a failure of the Imperium. This is the Imperium functioning as designed. The Guard exists because humanity is outnumbered. It is outnumbered by aliens who have fought for eons, by machines that do not tire, by gods that hunger for souls. Humanity survives not through superiority, but through attrition. It throws bodies at the enemy until the enemy is buried beneath them. This requires bodies. The Imperium produces bodies with the same efficiency it produces bullets. It harvests them from worlds designed for no other purpose. It trains them to the minimum acceptable standard. It equips them with the cheapest effective tools. It delivers them to the front and watches them die. And when they die, it produces more. There are commanders who care. There are officers who learn the names of their soldiers, who grieve their losses, who fight to minimize casualties. These commanders are rare. They are not promoted. Care is inefficiency. Grief is weakness. Minimizing casualties reduces the acceptable expenditure rate and disrupts supply projections. The system does not reward care. It rewards results. A general who loses 10,000 men taking a hill is judged by whether he took the hill. If he did, the loss is acceptable. If he did not, the loss is unacceptable, but not because men died. It is unacceptable because the investment failed to produce return. The Imperium does not measure success in lives saved. It measures success in objectives secured, resources extracted, threats neutralized. A campaign that kills 1 million guardsmen and wins a continent is a success. A campaign that kills 10,000 guardsmen and fails to hold a trench is a failure. The math is simple. There are prayers for this. The litany of expenditure, recited by logistics officers before filing casualty reports. The prayer of acceptable loss, recited by commanding officers after failed assaults. The prayers do not change the outcome. They simply frame it in terms that are doctrinally sound. The Emperor requires sacrifice. The Emperor is pleased by obedience. The dead have served their purpose. On a world whose name has been lost, a regiment is pinned in a valley by artillery fire. The shells fall in patterns calculated to maximize area denial and casualty infliction. The regiment cannot advance. It cannot retreat. It can only endure. A commissar stands in the command trench, a Vox unit pressed to his ear, receiving orders from an officer who is 300 kilometers away and has never seen the valley. The orders are clear. Hold position. Reinforcements are en route. Estimated time of arrival, 6 hours. The commissar knows the regiment will not last 6 hours. He says this: The officer repeats the order. The commissar acknowledges. He lowers the Vox unit. He draws his bolt pistol and shoots a man who is attempting to climb out of the trench and flee. The man's head disintegrates. His body falls backward into the mud. The other guardsmen do not move. They have seen this before. The commissar holsters his pistol. He recites the litany of duty. The guardsmen repeat the words, the Vavarith. No one needs to. The system already knows. The system accounts for Groa. The Imperium survives on faith, not hope, not love. Faith. Faith is the belief that suffering has meaning. Faith is the conviction that obedience will be rewarded, if not in this life, then in the next. Faith is the certainty that the God Emperor watches and knows and cares. The Guard is built on this foundation. Every guardsman is issued a copy of the Imperial Infantryman's uplifting primer. The primer is not a manual, it is a catechism. It teaches that the Emperor protects. It teaches that sacrifice is holy. It teaches that death in service is the highest honor a human can achieve. It does not teach how to survive. The primer contains prayers for every occasion. There are prayers for before battle, and prayers for after battle, and prayers for when the battle is lost. There are prayers for the wounded, and prayers for the dying, and prayers for those who must execute the dying, because there is no other mercy available. The prayers do not save lives. They make death easier to accept. Faith is administered by the ecclesiarchy. Preachers travel with the regiments, delivering sermons in makeshift chapels constructed from sandbags and scrap metal. The sermons are always the same. The Emperor is eternal. The Emperor is watching. The Emperor demands sacrifice. The guardsmen listen. They bow their heads. They repeat the words. Some believe, some pretend to believe. Both are acceptable. Belief is not the goal. Compliance is the goal. Faith is enforced by commissars. The commissars are not priests. They are executioners dressed in long coats and peaked caps. They carry bolt pistols and power swords and the authority to kill without trial or appeal. They do not answer to regimental commanders. They answer only to the commissariat, which answers only to the Imperium. Everything. A commissar's duty is to maintain discipline. Discipline is defined as the willingness to obey orders regardless of consequence. A man who hesitates is disciplined. A man who questions is disciplined. A man who runs is shot in the back and left where he falls, as an example. This is not cruelty. This is necessity. The Guard does not function on morale. Morale implies hope, and hope is a luxury the Imperium cannot afford. The Guard functions on fear. Fear of the enemy, fear of failure, and fear of the man in the long coat who watches from the rear and waits for someone to break. Fear is reliable. Fear does not waver. Fear can be measured and applied with precision. On a troop transport bound for a war that has been raging for 20 years, a young guardsman asks a veteran why they fight. The veteran is missing his left eye. The socket is covered with a patch of stained leather. He does not look at the young guardsman when he answers, because if we don't, the commissar will shoot us. But after that, the young guardsman says, "Why does the Imperium fight? What are we trying to win?" The veteran laughs. It is a sound like gravel scraping against metal. "We're not trying to win," he says. "We're trying not to lose." The young guardsman does not understand. He will. The war will teach him. The war teaches everyone, eventually. It teaches that victory is a word used in reports. It teaches that survival is a matter of luck, not skill. It teaches that the Guard does not save worlds. It simply delays their fall. And delay is enough. Delay is all the Imperium requires. Every day the Guard holds is another day for the Administratum to levy tithes, for the Mechanicus to forge weapons, for the Ecclesiarchy to spread faith. Every day is another day for the Imperium to exist. Existence is victory. The Guard does not learn. After every campaign, reports are filed. The reports contain casualty figures, equipment losses, tactical assessments, and recommendations for future operations. The reports are compiled into volumes the size of coffins and shipped to archive worlds where they are stored in climate-controlled vaults and never read. The Imperium does not study its mistakes. It does not need to. The Guard does not exist to improve. It exists to persist. The same battles are fought on 1,000 worlds. The same tactics are employed. The same losses are sustained. This is not ignorance. This is doctrine. The Tactica Imperialis, the foundational text of imperial military strategy, was written 10,000 years ago. It has not been revised. Revision would imply that the Imperium's enemies have changed or that humanity's circumstances have evolved. Neither is acceptable. The enemies are eternal: aliens, heretics, daemons. The circumstances are unchanging. Humanity is outnumbered, outgunned, and enduring. The tactics work. They are inefficient. They are wasteful. They cost millions of lives per campaign. But they work in the only sense that matters. The Imperium survives. And so the cycle continues. A world rebels, the Guard is sent, the Guard fights, the Guard wins or loses or fights to a stalemate and is relieved by another regiment that continues the war. The world is pacified or destroyed or abandoned. The Guard moves to the next war. The Guardsmen who survive are not rewarded. There is no rotation home. There is no discharge. A Guardsman serves until he dies, or until he is so broken that he can no longer fight, at which point he is reassigned to a labor battalion or a penal legion or processed into something useful. This is the contract. This is what the oath of service means. I serve until I fall. Falling is not metaphorical, it is literal. A Guardsman falls when his body can no longer stand. He falls when his mind can no longer process orders. He falls when he is too damaged to be repaired, too traumatized to be functional, too expendable to justify the resources required to save him. When he falls, he is replaced. The replacement does not know his name. The replacement wears his armor, carries his rifle, stands in his position. The replacement will fall too in time. Another will replace him. The line does not break. The line cannot break. The line is eternal. You were never going to survive. You were counted and cataloged and loaded onto a ship, and from the moment the ship's engines fired, your death was scheduled. Not the date, not the method, but the certainty. The Departamento Munitorum has calculated the average lifespan of a Guardsman in active combat. The figure is 15 hours. 15 hours from the moment you set foot on hostile ground to the moment you die. Some live longer, some die faster. The average is 15 hours. This is not hidden from you. It is written in the primer, buried in an appendix titled Statistical Realities of Service. The appendix is 4 pages long. It contains graphs and charts and tables that reduce your life to a probability curve. You are not encouraged to read it, but you are not lied to. The Imperium does not promise you will live. It promises that your death will matter. This is a lie, but it is a useful one. It keeps you moving forward. It keeps you firing. It keeps you in the trench when every instinct screams at you to run. Your death will not matter. Not to the Imperium, not to the Administratum, not to the generals who send you into the fire or the commissars who execute you if you refuse to burn. Your death will matter only to the system, because the system requires a certain volume of death to function. You are part of that volume. You are fuel. You are expenditure. You are a number in a ledger that stretches across the stars. And when you die, the ledger will be updated. Your designation will be logged. Your equipment will be salvaged. Your body will be processed, and the system will continue. It will continue because it must. The Imperium is 10,000 years old, and it has survived not through innovation or adaptation, but through sheer, grinding persistence. It has survived by consuming its children and calling it duty. It has survived by sanctifying suffering and calling it faith. It has survived by teaching you that your life is worth less than the ground you die defending. And you believed it because you were trained to believe it, because the alternative was to believe that the system itself was wrong. And the system cannot be wrong. The system is all that stands between humanity and annihilation. This is true. It is also irrelevant. You will die regardless. There is a world at the edge of the Segmentum Obscurus where the Guard has been fighting for 300 years. The war began over a dispute about mining rights. The original combatants are all dead. Their grandchildren are dead. Their great-grandchildren are fighting. No one remembers why the war started. The objective has changed 17 times. The enemy has been replaced twice. The war continues because stopping would require an admission that the previous 300 years were wasted. Waste is heresy. On this world, a Guardsman stands in a trench. He is 19 years old. He has been on the planet for 6 days. He does not know the name of the man standing next to him. He does not know the name of his commanding officer. He knows only his designation. 4477 JM. He holds his las rifle and watches the horizon. He has been told the enemy will come at dawn. He has been told this every day for 6 days. The enemy has not come. He does not know that the enemy withdrew from this sector 4 months ago. He does not know that his regiment is holding ground that has already been secured. He does not know that the orders to relocate his unit were lost in a clerical error on a ship that was destroyed in the warp 3 years before he was born. He knows only that he must hold. So he holds. He will hold until he dies, or until someone tells him to stop. No one will tell him to stop. Somewhere above him, in orbit, a data clerk is filing a report. The report notes that Sector 19 Gamma remains contested. The report recommends continued garrison presence. The report is approved. The guardsman will stand in the trench for the rest of his life. His life will last another 9 days. On the 10th day, an artillery shell will land 3 meters from his position. The shell is not fired by the enemy. It is fired by another Imperial regiment conducting a training exercise 40 kilometers away. The coordinates were entered incorrectly. The guardsman will die. His body will be processed. His designation will be logged. Another guardsman will be sent to replace him. The system will continue. Log entry 447E92 Tertius. Date 981 M41 location. Gyres reach Sector 7 North filed by Millennium Archivist L. Ven. Campaign concluded. Territory secured. Casualty assessment complete. Total losses 4,112,883. Imperial Guard personnel. Material losses acceptable. Strategic objectives achieved. Sector 7 North munitions discrepancy resolved. Supply chain error corrected. Resupply protocols updated. No further action required. Gyres reach designated for reconstruction phase. Tithe resumption scheduled. 999 M41. Regimental honors none awarded. Commendations none issued. Monuments none authorized. All records archived per standard protocol. The Emperor protects. End log. The Guard does not end. Somewhere, a tithe fleet is loading. Somewhere, a drill abbot is shouting orders at conscripts who do not yet know they are already dead. Somewhere, a commissar is reading the oath of service to men who will repeat it and mean it and die believing it mattered. Somewhere, a data clerk is updating a manifest. Somewhere, a guardsman is counting his shots. Somewhere, a mother is losing her son to the tithe and will never learn what happened to him. Somewhere, a world is burning and the Guard is being sent to hold it. Somewhere, a mistake is being made that will kill thousands. Somewhere, the system is functioning exactly as designed. The Imperium endures, not because it is just, not because it is good, not because it deserves to. It endures because it does not stop. I am the shield that guards mankind. I am the blade that strikes the Emperor's foes. I am the wall that holds the darkness at bay. My life is not my own. My death is not my choice. I serve until I fall, and when I fall forward. The words echo across a million worlds, spoken by trillions of throats, repeated until they lose meaning and become simply sound. And the sound continues, and the Guard continues, and you who were never meant to survive continue until you do not. This is the entire history of the Imperial Guard. It has always been this way. It will always be this way. The Emperor protects.